Hey everybody, this is Dave from Living the Next Chapter. Enoch Leffingwell is on with me today, and we had a great conversation, a chance to talk about his book, his writing, and it's very encouraging and exciting to talk to. Happy to share this with you here on Living the Next Chapter. Enoch is here, so hope you enjoy the conversation, and check out all of the links included in the show notes as we go through today's episode. Thanks for coming back. Here we go with Enoch.
And instead of asking the question, what if I do this work and it doesn't work? Change your question, because there's a concept I teach in my book. When you change your question, you change your life. And the quality of your life comes down to the quality of the questions that you have and ask. So instead of asking, what if I do all this work and it doesn't work? Start asking, how awesome is this going to be when this works? How life-changing will this be for me, for my family, for my readers when I write this book and it does work and it takes off and it impacts people's lives? When you change your question, it changes your focus, and that focus produces the feeling, and that feeling produces a function of encouragement and empowerment, and then you have the courage to take the action, and that action changes the fruit that you have. And when you change that question from what if this doesn't work to how amazing will this be when it does work, then a lot of those feelings of discouragement, of failure, of giving up, they start to just simply vanish away. They lose their power on you, because that feeling of giving up only exists when there's a certain pattern of focus, of asking questions, of looking at failure, looking at the previous mistakes, or looking at what's not working, and then feeling like I don't have the resources to thrive. I don't have the time, I don't have the knowledge, I don't understand what to do, I can't do this, I've never done this before. And those patterns, instead, start looking at what are all of the other previous things that have uniquely equipped you for such a time as this. Like, look for them, because what you focus on, you find. You will find what you look for. And those are some quick tips that I would suggest that could really help someone who may feel like giving up, or like this isn't for them. But I want to encourage you, you have a message. You have a message, and your message matters. And when you're able to get your message, package it in a way that can be distributed to the masses, big things are ready to happen for your life.
Welcome, everyone, to the podcast. It is so great to have everyone here today. My guest is just a super kind human. To be able to spend time with him today, I am so excited and happy to have my guest on with me today. He is a multi-talented creator, and he helps people, and he's a writer as well, which is great. So welcome to the podcast. So glad to have you here today. How are things? What's going on with you today?
Thank you so much, Dave. I'm greatly blessed to be on the podcast as well. Looking forward to serving your audience and authors and those messengers who have a message and impact the world. I'm doing fantastic. Each day is getting better than the last, and I'm glad to be here.
Okay, so if anybody can tell in the first few seconds of our conversation, you just radiate positivity. So where does this come from? Why are you so positive in a world that can be a little bit hard and harsh? You're coming across already as so positive and uplifting. Where does this come from? Where's your source?
Well, to be honest, I really believe that an aimless life is a living death, and there's a lot of confusion and discouragement that comes when there's uncertainty, when we are unclear about, say, the future, what we're to do, or our mission, our reason to live. And I've done a lot of searching in my soul and my heart, and I've really found in the Word of God, in the Bible, to find answers that have helped me so much, and that has given me a drive and a purpose. And now it's like revived me, totally transformed my life. So now I'm able to go out and help others in the marketplace. And I love it. I love what I do. And I'm clear on where I'm going, and I'm clear on who I am uniquely equipped to serve. And I believe that there is something really special that happens when you can be in alignment with your assignments, and you really know that you're in that zone. And I feel it. I really believe that I am living my dream life, and it's just incredible. I get to wake up with gratitude to be able to help people to get their message out, because you're right. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of hurting. There's a lot of people with uncertainty. And if you're listening to this, you're probably an author or you want to be an author, and you have a message, you have solutions that could help bring that clarity and direction to others. And it just lights me up to see you getting your message out to others. And so I live for this. So I love being able to get on podcasts and share tips that can help others to get their message out to those who they are called to serve.
And that's great. I love hearing you say that, because again, the audience is listening in. They're tuning into the Living the Next Chapter podcast because they get to listen to great guests like yourself come on and share your author journey and encourage people who are either thinking about writing a book or in the process, or maybe they've even released the book. And at any point in their writing career, they're living the next chapter of their life and their book and their writing process. So to have you on today is amazing. So take me back a little bit in the earlier days. I'm looking on your website and a little bit about your background, where you struggled and you tried to find your place in this world. You tried a bunch of different things. You even fixed bicycles. So, hey, if I need a bike fixed, I'm going to come to you. But tell me a little bit about your search and your path to get to where you are. We celebrate arriving at a place where we feel like we found our purpose, but there had to be a point in your life when there wasn't really as clear for you what your purpose was. Take us back to those days and help us kind of get some perspective on what it was like before you got to today.
Yeah, most definitely. It's interesting that you were talking about fixing bicycles, because I don't recall or I don't remember where I've published that before. But yeah, for sure, that was one of the business endeavors that I started. See, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 10 years old, and I knew at a young age that I really like to help people. And once I realized that I could basically spend my time helping to solve people's problems and enhancing their life and get paid for that, before I was a teenager, I'm like, wow, it just ignited some sort of, it's like of an interest in me. And I became fascinated with digital marketing since I was 12 years old. And I just had an interest. But as far as like where I fit and where I belong in this whole process of life, it was very confusing at first. But I will say that I had over 15 failed business attempts, testing out a variety of different business models and offers and opportunities. But it was the 16th one that really took off, and when I was at a very low point, I was actually homeless, living in my car, and I was transitioning in between one endeavor with a business partner that didn't work out, and then the 16th business is where things changed, and that's where I was able to start a six-figure family business that has been able to help thousands of people around the world, and I've learned a lot through there. And when I really look back at what has been the major shift, the biggest step that moved that made the difference between the first 15 failures, quote unquote, to the 16th and the ones afterwards that really started to do so much better, it was finding the right mentor. And I found that almost every major advancement in my life, that I got better clarity, where I got better direction, where I learned skills so much faster. Even what started my professional speaking career when I was 17, and that was about 10 years ago, there was a mentor involved that helped me to learn the ropes, or to see the future that I have not walked yet, because they've been where I want to go. And because of that, I'm extremely passionate about mentorship, even to the point of like the book that I wrote is called I Want a Mentor, Now What Do I Do? And it's a best-selling book on Amazon under business consulting. And it's really showing authors, speakers, coaches, and other high-level entrepreneurs how they're able to meet master mentors, to maximize those mentorships, whether it's a book, that's a form of mentorship, or a seminar, a course, a mastermind, and then how to master any skill in half the time. And I believe that a lot of the principles in this book is really a summation of what are some of the most life-transforming principles, that I've applied in my business and in my life and relationships, that have helped me to go from just a lot of confusion, depressed from age 11 to 16, and not sure of what to do or like what I can do to really having much more clarity and purpose and drive and enjoyment for what I get to do. But it's a lot of the principles that are found here that helps to really turn people's lives around, which is why I'm excited to talk about it.
So from your point of view, looking to mentors as you've been growing and growing your business and growing you personally, and being a mentor yourself, what do you think is maybe a characteristic of a great mentor that just kind of, it makes it pretty obvious that this is somebody that I can work with or I can learn from? What makes a great mentor?
That's a great question. And first, before I explain like what a great mentor is, I'd like to explain what is a mentor, just so we're on the same definition, because there's a lot of different ideas people get. When I say mentor, I would say like the Oxford definition is someone who is a trusted advisor. And it's just someone who you receive advice from. And it's someone who you trust to receive that guidance or instruction. So in a very broad kind of sense of the term is how I apply, whether that's through a book that you read or whether it's a course that you go through or it's an event you attend, like that's all a form of mentorship. Even podcasts, listening to podcasts could be a form of mentor. But one thing that I would say that is a great quality about what makes a great mentor is someone who is very interested in your success. Like one thing that I realized is there are, like when you're able to find scenarios where your mentor wins when you win, and you win when your mentor wins, when there's like win-win situations or connections or association, then there's so much that could be done. There's so much abundance that could be created for whatever the results or area is of that mentorship. And I find that when there is like a symbiotic or there's harmony with each other's objectives and success, then that's a really good recipe for something special, something really great.
So the art of being a mentor, as a mentor, do you have to have everything figured out in life? You are at the top of the pinnacle of life and you've figured everything out. You're an expert on all things. You have all knowledge. You've experienced everything in life. Is that true? Or are you, as a mentor, still growing and learning even as you're mentoring others?
Great question. And the truth of the matter is, there's no mentor that you're going to find that is perfect in every particular and perfect in every way. It just doesn't happen. One thing that I learned about this was I fell in love with teaching when I was in 7th grade. I found that in math, I struggled all throughout elementary with basic math, but when we started throwing in those letters in algebra, I was like, oh, this makes sense. It's kind of like a puzzle. I like this. And it was fun. But I noticed that a lot of my friends, my peers around me, they were struggling. And I didn't understand all the ins and outs of math, but I just shared with them the little pieces that I knew. And I found that they had epiphanies. They got it. They're like, oh, why didn't the teacher explain it this way? I'm like, well, they kind of did. That's how I learned it. But it's okay. We just kind of, if you didn't get it one way, you can get it another and then another until something clicks. And I liked it when things clicked for them. And I found that like teaching can be so helpful. But the truth is, how this ties in is that you don't have to like be a mathematician to share. If you know 4th grade math, you can teach 3rd graders how to do 3rd grade math. And whatever that is applied to your subject or topic, if you have an area that you're passionate about, you don't even have to so much be an expert as much as you can be an enthusiast. There's so many people who want to try to position themselves as having more expertise in what they really do. And you don't have to, like, there's so much pressure that's being put on being expert in this. And when really some of you who are getting started, it's best to just be an enthusiast. Say like, I'm really passionate about this subject and I love studying it. And if you are, if you're just one chapter ahead, you have so much to offer and you can help those. And a lot of times it is actually your failures, your vulnerabilities, the struggles that you have that people are able to relate with. And if they can't relate with you in your losses, they won't be able to rejoice with you in your successes. Otherwise, all the success just creates too much distance for people, where they're like, I can't really relate because they're not like me. And so I find that it's not about finding the perfect mentor or being a perfect mentor. It's about being authentic to where we are and allowing people to relate where we are. And a lot of times it's easier to mentor someone, or it's easier to be mentored. A lot of students want to connect with someone who may be like 3 or 5 steps ahead of them, rather than someone who's like 30, 50 steps ahead, and they haven't been where I am in the last like 40 years. So they're so removed from me that they just seem unreachable. So a lot of people are positioned so perfectly to be a mentor that they wish they had when they were in some situation.
So there's this, I don't even know where I got this from. So if I've stolen this, I fully admit that I don't know if I came up with this, but probably somebody much smarter than I came up with this. But for me, there's 3 people in my life that I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody ahead of me that I can model after, I can learn from, I can grow from, someone who's where I want to be. So that's number 1. The second person is somebody next to me that I can do life with. We're kind of on the same level, in the same boat. We're kind of doing doing life together. And then the third person is maybe somebody who's looking behind me, who's looking to me as the example. And in that situation, I have 3 people now that I like to surround myself with. Who do you like to surround yourself with? And why is it important to have a mentor in your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I fully agree with those 3 people to surround yourself with. In my book, I Want to Mentor, Now What Do I Do? I talk about how we would do well to be a student of those who are before us, and a peer to those who are besides us, and a mentor to those who are behind us. And it's a very similar concept. And I fully, wholeheartedly agree with that. And the reason why mentors are so important, I believe, is because like in life and business, I don't really believe that there are such thing as, say, like shortcuts, because but there's principles. But if there was one thing that is the closest thing to a shortcut, it would be having the right mentor. Because when you have someone who is further ahead than you, or who is where you want to be, and they've been where you are, then that's one of the fastest path of accomplishing any goal in the shortest amount of time possible. And one of the there's 5 steps to finding the right mentor. People hear it and they're just like, well, how can I find a mentor? What do I do with that? And I'd say they're as simple as this. Number 1, find someone who has the results, or actually number 1, get extremely clear and decide exactly what you want in life. Decide. When you have, again, an aimless life is a living death. If you don't have a vision, without a vision, the people perish, is what King Solomon says. So decide exactly what you want. Number 2, find someone who has the results that you want. And number 3, pay them whatever they charge to find out what they did. Many times you're going to have to pay in money, or you're going to have to pay in time. But whatever they charge, pay it, because it's going to be worth it. And number 4 is to do what they did. And number 5 is to continue until what? Until you have the results that you want. And when you follow these 5 steps to finding a mentor, it is one of the fastest ways to be able to collapse time frames, where you can learn in days what took others decades to learn. And I believe that a lot of the one resource that is so limited that so many of us are lacking today is time. It seems like time is going faster and faster as the days continue. But a mentor, whenever, like for instance, whenever I invest in a book, whenever I invest in a coaching program, I'm literally buying my time back at a discount, because I'm able to borrow or utilize some of the patterns that they've recognized, the experience that they have, and being able to avoid pitfalls that I would have made. Like those first 15 failed business attempts, I had all these pitfalls. But the 16th, when I got the right business mentor, my first millionaire mentor, that's when I started to realize what to focus on, what not to focus on, what matters and what's a pitfall, what's a distraction, and what's going to make real development. And I wouldn't have known all those things if it wasn't for having a mentor that's able to who's further along the journey that I want to travel in.
And you're demonstrating that for anyone that's listening or watching today. So thank you for doing that, first of all, for allowing us to have time with you. So, tell me a little bit about the 15 times where you hit a wall or things didn't go your way, or people would say failed, I guess, or learned. There's authors listening to this right now, and they've been told no. Maybe their book's not good enough. Maybe their writing's not good enough. People have turned them away and said, publishers have said, nope, that's not for us. And some people are thinking of just giving up. Like it's been 1, 2, 3 no's. And they're like, how do I push through all the no's to get to the point where I finally hear my first yes? And with your backstory, 15 times of no or not working out well, you could have given up at any point of those in that time frame, and we wouldn't be talking right now. So how do we encourage somebody to push through the no's to get to the yes?
That's a great question. And it's a question that I often get at EnochLeffingwell.com. And the way that I answer that is in Proverbs 14:23, there's a verse and it says, in all labor, there is profit. And I love that concept because what it's really saying is all work works, that there's no such thing as work that doesn't work. And so many people are afraid of taking on a book, writing a book or selling a book, or like writer's block. So many people are like, well, I don't know what to write because I have writer's block. You don't have writer's block. You're just afraid that if you write it, nobody's going to buy your book. No one's going to read your book. That's not writer's block. That's looking at the failure. But when we could realize that in all labor, there's profit, all work works. There's 2 types of work. There's the work that it does for you. That's when you write the book, it becomes, let's say, maybe a bestseller if that's your goal. And so many people start to read it, you're impacting many people. That's the work that it does for you. And many people feel that if the work that they do doesn't work for them, that means it didn't work. But I would submit to you, if the work you do is not working for you, that means that it's working on you. And you have to allow the work to continue to work on you until you can become the person who your work can eventually work for you. But no matter what, in all work, there is a paycheck. In all work, there is profit. In all work, there is the benefit. It's impossible for it not to work. So when I coach entrepreneurs and authors and speakers, and one thing that I tell my students is, if you knew that you could not fail, what would you do? How would you show up if you knew that success was inevitable? How would you write your book? How would you create your website? Or how would you start to speak or give your talk if you knew that success was inevitable and the only option was to thrive? And then just start listing off, what are the different ways would you have more confidence? Would you make that phone call you've been procrastinating? Would you write and dedicate the time? Whatever it is, it's like, what would you do if you knew that you could not fail? And then go do that. And instead of asking the question, what if I do this work and it doesn't work? Change your question, because there's a concept I teach in my book. When you change your question, you change your life. And the quality of your life comes down to the quality of the questions that you have and ask. So instead of asking, what if I do all this work and it doesn't work? Start asking, how awesome is this going to be when this works? How life-changing will this be for me, for my family, for my readers when I write this book and it does work and it takes off and it impacts people's lives? When you change your question, it changes your focus, and that focus produces the feeling, and that feeling produces a function of encouragement and empowerment. And then you have the courage to take the action, and that action changes the fruit that you have. And when you change that question from what if this doesn't work to how amazing will this be when it does work, then a lot of those feelings of discouragement, of failure, of giving up, they start to just simply vanish away. They lose their power on you, because that feeling of giving up only exists when there's a certain pattern of focus, of asking questions, of looking at failure, looking at the previous mistakes, or looking at what's not working, and then feeling like I don't have the resources to thrive. I don't have the time. I don't have the knowledge. I don't understand what to do. I can't do this. I've never done this before. And those patterns, instead, start looking at what are all of the other previous things that have uniquely equipped you for such a time as this? Like, look for them, because what you focus on, you find. You will find what you look for. And those are some quick tips that I would suggest that could really help someone who may feel like giving up or like this isn't for them. But I want to encourage you, you have a message. You have a message, and your message matters. And when you're able to get your message, package it in a way that can be distributed to the masses, big things are ready to happen for your life.
And the one thing I love that, by the way, that's so powerful. And that's a moment there, I think, where people need to like rewind, listen to that again, because that's amazing information right there. Before we hit record though, you were sharing a little bit about something that's inspiring you that you're reading and putting into practice in your own life. And I could see the joy and excitement in you as you're unleashing this. Can you share again the book title with me again? Because I want to share that with the audience, but as well, what this is challenging you to do and kind of some of the early results you're seeing from what you're learning.
Absolutely. So the book, my mentor recommended that I read this book called Key Person of Influence, and by Daniel Priestley. And it's a book teaching people how to become the go-to person in their industry and become one of the most highly sought after and highly paid people in your industry. And so there's 5 points, but one of those points is about publishing. And when you're able to get your book, and when you publish your book, then what it was talking about is different reasons that a book can provide for you, and how to take your book, and it's like my book, and then convert it into blog articles. And with those blog articles, being able to submit that to some of the top magazines or articles or publications in whatever industry of your of your category. And in this, so that's basically what I'm doing. The assignment was to take your book, and each chapter could become a blog article, and to start with at least 10 before reaching out to some of these larger publications. So you could be seen featured in media. Like for me, it'd be like Forbes magazine or Entrepreneur or Success magazine. Some of these have some of the target audience I want to reach. And so that's what I'm doing. And I've been working on it. I'm excited because it's like the example of that mentorship from the Key Person of Influence book gave me one little nugget, and from there has spurred on where I've been able to take just the first section of my book, which is the first 4 chapters. I was able to turn into 14 blog articles, and in just about like 3-4 hours. Like it wasn't even that long. And just being able to pump those out so quickly, I'm like, wow, because it's less about writing from scratch, and it's more about repurposing the content in the book. And that has been such a powerful takeaway for me. And I really believe that we could always be learning. And that book is great for authors of any kind.
I love it. I love it. Because the one thing I hear, from a lot of my past guests and listeners is they write this book, they're so excited about it, and they get to the finish line and they realize that the finish line of writing is a published book in your hand. But that finish line quickly becomes a starting line, because now you have to start promoting this book. And for most of these authors, they're on their own at that point. So that kind of feedback, and then being the subject matter expert and leading and getting yourself out there and taking your knowledge and taking the book beyond the covers and putting it out into the world. That's a great way to grow your book, to grow your audience and your community. It's outstanding. Any early results from you on the process so far? What are you excited about?
Yeah, absolutely. First, like something that you said reminded me of one of the biggest mistakes that authors make, and most entrepreneurs, is not realizing what business you're actually in. And what do I mean by that? And it's most authors think that because they have a business that writes books or in whatever your product may be, that they think they're in the business of writing books. See, you're not in the business of writing books. You're in the business of marketing books. And when you could realize, if you don't know what business you're actually in, you're going to make a lot of the mistakes. That is why so many people write books and nobody hears about them. It's because it's not shifting from book writing or book publishing to becoming book marketer. That's really the way to, without marketing, our message is going to die on our lips. So that's something I want to give to the audience to realize. And what that looks like practically is, once you have your book, that's absolutely right. This isn't the finish line. Like, we launched our book and we got to #1 bestseller. And it was like, I was able to write the book in about 2 weeks, and it was relatively quick. But once we got to bestseller, it's like, okay, that's great. But is that really the finish line? No, it's like, I just begun. So now it's about how to take the book and find creative ways to market it. And marketing, to me, is getting a message to an audience. So being able to bring awareness so that you're able to impact the people's lives that you were designed to. And so I'm really glad that you touched on that. I totally agree. Now, your question was, what am some early success that I'm having with this now? And what am I excited about? And I would say, like, for now, it's very interesting about having a book that really positions you with some credibility, which it never ceases to kind of fascinate me, how our society places so much value on someone who has published a book, like just this little square paper. People really enjoy a lot, and I'm like, this is interesting, because I've been able to take it to some of my previous mentors or some other people at business conference, and I share it with them, and they're like, oh wow, you published a book. It's like instantly there's a shift of perception. So even just having a book, I realize that there are multiple ways that you're able to profit from a book without selling a single copy. It's such a powerful resource. But for me, I really like that, being able to repurpose it, to now being able to create a signature speech on it, to be able to created a course from the principles in the book, to be able to share on content for YouTube, on Reels for Instagram that are covering similar topics. I find that a book really helps to, like, as far as the marketing, because one thing I teach my students is to stop creating content as a content creator and start creating content as a content marketer, because there's a big difference. Content creators are just sharing concept ideas and things they're passionate about, things they're excited to share, but it's not intentional. It's not helping people to become the person who can really take the next step with you. But as a content marketer, you're solving problems that now create follow-up problems that, say, your book is able to solve. And I find that really fascinating, because there's so much different nuggets and concepts and principles that I'm now able to share that's able to be taken from the book, where all of the different content and messages are able to funnel back to this resource that is now able to help share with people the journey, and to share with them some principles and methods of how I help people. And I find that has been really clarifying, helpful, and I just love books in that regard. And so that's one thing I'm excited about, being able to repurpose the principles in the book to the different modalities of being able to reach people, and creating multiple a product suite out of the principles in the book.
Perfect. Now, looking at your website and doing a little background on you've worked with and spent time with some pretty amazing, influential people in the world, like people who are like at the top of their game doing amazing things. I'm curious, from your perspective, working with these people and having time with people that, when you go back to fixing bicycles way back in the day, you probably would never have the chance to speak to these people, right? But you've kind of got to the place now where you have this audience with people that are just great leaders in their field. is there anybody that stands out to you just off the top of your head that is doing a really good job in marketing, and you've learned something, or you've gleaned something from what they do that makes you kind of go, I love that. I really like how you approach it, your thoughts, your actions. There's something about what you do that I really love. Does anybody kind of stand out to you that you've crossed paths with recently or in your past that kind of just spark some creativity for you?
Yeah, most definitely. I would say that there's two people who really spark creativity for me, that they do something that I love. And the first one was Russell Brunson, because when I read the Expert Secrets book, that's another book for any authors out there. If you haven't read Expert Secrets, like, go read that. It's amazing. And in there, he just broke down this journey of being able to get your message to the world. And I really like how the community that Russell has built with ClickFunnels, and just the authenticity that he has, and how he's able to help people to just activate and discover what's priority, what isn't, how to use the messaging. Listening to a lot of the content from Russell is really, as far as marketing, has clicked. The thing that fascinates me the most about Russell is there's a principle that I teach in my book, and it's called the Take Me to Your Mentor method. And in this, it's really just going to your mentors and saying, who are the people that you appreciate learning from? And then ask them the question, who mentored you? And seeing whoever they answered, then ask that person, who mentored you? And then ask that person, who mentored you? And then basically go up the mentorship, like the generations of the different mentors who are mentoring others. And one thing that I recognize is there's a pattern. There's a pattern that often you'll find in any industry. There is usually a handful of people at the top who are really the mentors of almost all the other mentors. Like, their influence is seen. If they don't influence you directly, they're influencing the mentors who are influencing you. And that is a pattern that I recognize. And I realized in so many different ways in marketing. When I first looked at digital marketing, I was seeing that there is a lot of different people or business entrepreneurs who are speaking on all these different like sections of marketing. I'm like, well, and some of them would contradict each other, but I noticed a lot of them have, say, like a 2 Comma Club award behind them, or they have some indication, or like the or the Secret Trilogy books that Russell wrote. And I realized that so many of these roads are going back to Russell, and truly, like, he's been a catalyst for some of these top influencers in the marketing space. And for authors and for coaches, speakers, I'm like, wow, this is interesting. So the principle is just basically going to your mentors and asking, who mentored you? And that's one thing that really inspires me of the level of impact that Russell's able to have in the lives of these entrepreneurs who are changing the world.
That's amazing. Amazing. Okay, so I don't want to hold you too much longer, because I know you have a full day. And again, I'm very appreciative that you have time to chat with me today. Tell me a little bit about what you're hoping your readers will find in your book, and kind of the journey you hope to take them to. What's the destination in your book? What do you hope people will arrive at by reading?
Yeah, great question. So in my book, there's 3 main parts that I am helping the reader to be able to gain and to experience, or to destination to get to. The first one is, how do you meet master mentors? How do you meet the people who are the best in their fields, to get in the room with them, or to get on their radar, or to receive the advice and just the types of people that are not just playing small, but are doing big things in the area that you want to do in life. And so the first portion is really showing people I have a mentor framework, 6 steps to finding the right mentor. And that includes getting really clear on what is your life's definite aim, deciding exactly what you want. There's an exercise I have in here that helps people to really define their vision for their life, so that they can have intention when they do reach out, so that they know what kind of mentor they're looking for. But the second thing is, now that you have a mentor, how are you going to maximize those mentorships? Like, to really get the most out of it? Because honestly, people are investing $20,000, $30,000 or more in these coaching programs or masterminds, or like I've invested in a $155,000 mastermind. And it's like, when you invest at varying levels, you want to make sure that you're getting the most out of it. And so there's a whole section that's teaching you how to become a super student of successful people, how you're able to replicate some of the results. And there's some ways that mentors don't really understand, that are based on brain-based learning in the way that our mind actually wants to be communicated to. Some mentors don't realize that. So when they speak, it can be challenging to learn. But if you've ever wondered like why two people can attend the same seminars, read the same books, and two people can sit in the same room, but one takes off and has rapid success and the other one is staying stagnant in the same place that they were last year or the last event. And it's like, what makes the difference between those types of people? And I would say that the one who's able to get the results they're looking for faster have become what I like to call super students of success. And they learn differently than who I would call struggling students, who are struggling to get ahead. So there's a whole section here that's teaching you how to maximize the mentorships that you're already investing in, whether you're investing your time, like listening to this podcast, or investing money, like attending an event or a mastermind. And that's something I'm excited about, so that people can just really thrive in their God-given assignment in the marketplace. And then the last one that I help people with is how to master skills in half the time or a fraction of the time. Because in life and business, there's skills. Like really, the gap between where you are now and where you want to be is the exact same gap between what you know now and what you don't know yet. And that knowledge gap, that skill gap, can be bridged by having the right mentor. One of the fastest ways to be able to accelerate that path for acquiring skills that allow you to solve problems in the marketplace is the mentorship can accelerate that. And once you learn how to be a super student of successful people, then you learn how you could remember what you learn, how you can apply quickly the information. Instead of having so much information overwhelm, let's just eliminate that entirely for you. So you have clarity and certainty when you have a new program, a course, a framework, when you have a book, and you're going through, instead of just devouring a bunch of content, going from one challenge, one event, one podcast to another, and you don't know what to do with yourself, to have a simple action plan that you can immediately apply to get results quickly. So that's about how to acquire those skills, because skills are so powerful. If it's the one thing that no government can take your skills away, no divorce can strip you of your skills, no economic downturn can leave you without your skills. When you invest in what I would call your number one asset, which is your minds, and you learn high income skills, high impact skills, then those skills carry with you for the rest of your life. And it's a matter of stacking those skills that allow you to solve increasingly more complex, more valuable problems in the marketplace. And then the question is like, well, how do I eliminate these learning curves? How do I limit these learning curves and to acquire the skills faster when we're living in this information age where information, knowledge is increasing ever so much? But I believe it's our ability to acquire new skills and apply them to solving people's problems. That's really a determining factor of whether people thrive or whether people are struggling to survive in this new economy.
Enoch, can we just do like this podcast for the rest of the week and you just keep talking? Because like you're just sharing so much stuff. I love this. This is amazing. Okay, so I have a question for you that I wanted to save for the end. But before I do that, how does everybody find you? Where are you most active online so that people can continue the conversation with you? Because I can anticipate people are going to want to speak with you and be in touch with you. How do we do that, first of all, before I jump to my last question?
Yeah, well, if you want to grab a copy of my best-selling book, I Want to Mentor Now, What Do I Do? The best way is to go to the website, iwantamentorbook.com, and you can get access to the content in this book, iwantamentorbook.com. That's the best way to get the book. And the best way to contact me is to go to the website. It's my name, EnochLeffingwell.com. And when you go to EnochLeffingwell.com, you'll be able to see there's a section where it says connect with me. I'm active on Instagram, Facebook, on YouTube. I regularly produce content on TikTok. Wherever you like to consume content, you can connect with me there and really reach out to me. I love speaking. I love meeting new people. I love speaking with authors. People have a message. If you believe that your heart is stirred, that you want to get your message out, and you you see a problem that you can solve, and you would like to further a conversation or to look into some other trainings that I have, just go to EnochLeffingwell.com. Connect with me on social media, and there's some resources there that could really help you out. And definitely grab a copy of the book so that you could accelerate that learning curve.
Okay, that's great, Enoch. Thank you. And so my question to kind of end off is something I've been reading about is like junior employees coming into the workspace, younger than their bosses, younger than their supervisors, younger than the founding members of the company. And the whole idea around reverse mentoring, your thoughts kind of on that as a new generation comes into the workforce. How does reverse mentoring kind of play out? And maybe what's an advantage to reverse mentoring?
Could you define for me real quick what reverse mentoring is?
So that would just be something along the outlines of a junior employee possibly coming in, and maybe they're really, really good in, say, social media, and the company's not doing social media. So you can come in with your expertise, your skills, your talents in a junior role, but still not think that you don't have something to offer in mentorship. You can mentor your supervisors, those above you, and help them grow as leaders by offering the skills and talents and abilities that you have. So in a sense, you're kind of like a junior version of a mentor. So I just kind of see that playing out in business today, where it's not where you come to a job, you're out of college, university, you've had 15 failed attempts, and now it's number 16, and here I am. And you have to sit on the shelf, sit on the bench and listen and learn from the senior people. No, you have something to offer as you come into this company. And I just think there's a value add by empowering junior employees to be mentors to those above them. Kind of your thoughts on that.
Okay, yeah, I believe I understand better now. I'm familiar with that term that is called like leading up,
Okay. Yeah.
and where you're in a more junior role and you're leading up those who might be higher in a position. So that makes sense. And in all honesty, that's basically been a lot of my journey for most of my speaking career and leadership roles, because I've been early involved in speaking and teaching and helping organizations grow since I was really a teenager. I started speaking to audiences when I was 17 and traveling the entire West Coast. By the time I was 18, I've constantly been put in situations where I've had to do some reverse mentoring, and I realized very early that just a lot of people have a challenge being taught by people who are younger than them. And if they have a challenge with that, one example that I learned that helped me tremendously was in the book of Luke, chapter 2. It describes when Jesus was 12 years old, he was in the temple. There were some scribes, Pharisees, doctors of the law that were basically having a conversation with him in the temple. And they wanted to teach him, and they were more proud. They were harder to be taught. If they thought that this 12-year-old was going to teach them a thing or two, they were not having it at all. But the way that Jesus was teaching them was masterful. And it's how he was asking them questions. And the very questions that he asked were instructive. And because he positioned himself almost like a student, or he positioned himself as someone who was inquiring, then those questions caused the leaders to think and to see histories that they've never considered before, where they were now being able to be influenced in that regard. And so I learned that lesson, and I applied it to many situations in leadership where rather than coming as like, I am the like having a positional authority in this situation, and I'm going to like show you from my years of experience, just taking more of a humble route where it's just like, well, have you considered, like, have you explored options that, or have you looked at mentorship? Have you considered maybe there's a framework? Because a big thing that I like to show people is if you have a result, there's already a framework for it. So it's like, have you tried searching for a framework or finding someone who's already done what we want to do, and we can model what has worked? Or just like having some of these instructive questions, it leads people to think, oh wow, maybe I do want to go look at that. And I find that so often people are looking for the right answer, when really if we just start looking for the right question, the question will lead to the answer. And when the senior roles come up with the answer to the question, they take ownership of the result because they feel like they generated, and they did generate that idea. Now they're more willing to run with it too. And that has been really effective for reverse mentoring in that regard.
Okay, Enoch, you've taken us back to math class. We are all kind of came into this class thinking we knew math, but you seem to have an edge. And in our conversation today, you've helped to explain, unpack, and helped us all to kind of put the letters and numbers together and make sense of all this. So thank you for kind of unpacking this in math for us today. You're continuing to live out what you did way back in the day. And again, your journey to get to today is inspiring for anyone that wants to take in and listen and learn from you. Your book is an amazing resource for people, and your time is so well appreciated. I'm so thankful to have you part of the podcast and to have this conversation. Thank you for making time for us. And I encourage everyone to go check out all the links in the show notes, all the books we've mentioned, all the stuff that Enoch has shared. And again, Enoch, thank you so much. Any final greetings or goodbye to the people listening? Anything you want to leave people with before we close?
Yes, Dave, I just want to say you've been a great host. I've really enjoyed our conversation. You're so fun to talk to. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve your audience. There's so much alignment with who you're serving and who I'm serving and how we can help them. And I thank you for that opportunity. And for those who are listening, I want to encourage you that if you have a desire to write a book, or you have a desire to get your book out to more readers, don't give up. It's not a matter of if you succeed, it's when. Because when you could last through the learning curve, when you could persevere and continue until you have those results, you're going to be able to experience things that nobody else has been able to experience. You're going to find doors that are open for you that most people will never experience or realize in life because they don't have that perseverance that you do. Even the fact that you're here shows, and that you've made it to the end of this, shows that you are dedicated to this cause. You have a dream. You have a purpose. You have a mission that you are seeking to accomplish. Don't give up on that dream, because every overnight success that we hear has really been 12 years in the making. It's not attractive to talk about those 15 failures that so many people go through. It's really great on media for, like, this guy made $3 million in 3 days. And that is what we see a lot of times in these headlines. But I want to encourage you that your time is coming as you continue, as you learn the skills, as you find the mentors that are going to help accelerate that path. Don't give up, because your message matters, and you have a solution that the world needs today more than ever before. And I just thank you for your time in listening to this, and I'm glad that we can be here to serve you and support you on your authorship journey.
Enoch, you're living out a biblical principle that I want to close off with. There's a passage that talks about, don't let anyone look down on you because you're young or inexperienced or whatever. Don't let anyone look down on you because you're young, but set an example. And I think that's exactly what you're doing. And even though there might be people that are older than you or further down the road, you're setting an example. And you're doing that here with us. You're doing that through what you're doing with your book and all of the great things you're up to. Continue doing that, because that's going to bring value to many people. And thank you for being part of the podcast.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for checking out Living the Next Chapter. Our guests are amazing. I hope you're enjoying this free podcast, and that you would share this with somebody you think would enjoy the topic of our podcast today, would enjoy this guest, would enjoy this book. Share the podcast. It's very simple. You can just tell people. You can send it to them. But go head over to Living the Next Chapter. You'll find all of the information there on our guests. You'll find episode details. You can find out where we are in the world, links to YouTube. Oh, so much. Oh, so much. How do we do this much? For free? We do it because we really like you. Yeah, that's really the reason. livingthenextchapter.com. I'm over there. You should be there too. livingthenextchapter.com. I'll see you there. Thanks for listening. Check out the next episode coming soon. Right here. livingthenextchapter.com. Thank you for being you. Cheers.
Mindshift Power Podcast, the podcast for teenagers and those who work with them. There's a huge problem in America today. There's a very large disconnect between teenagers and the adults who work with them. I'm looking to bridge that gap with real, raw, honest conversation, not held back by the chains of political correctness. You cannot solve a problem you do not understand. Want to understand teenagers today? Listen to this podcast. This podcast is for teens in the U.S. and Canada. To learn more, go to fatimabay.com/podcast or just look for Mindshift Power Podcast on any listening platform. I look forward to you being a faithful listener.